So Mike and I have been having a conversation today. It's our first conversation in the year 2026. So happy new year. I know some episodes have already come out because we have a production pipeline as professional podcasters do. Anyway, like I said earlier in one of the episodes, I want some more adjectives. So I guess professional, sleek, elegant. The list goes on and on. Anyway, fools. No, it's just one insult, just a little one. You got to have an insult in there. Self-deprecating. Anyway, so Mike and I have been talking about sort of what do we do now? So we're going to be talking about this because we've seen, the job market kind of go not so great, talking about that kind of to death. There's obviously a lot of people that are talking about how coding is irrelevant now because of AI and all these things. And obviously, if you're a person that's been laid off or you're trying to get into the industry, it's going to be a bit of a struggle. And so you're probably thinking potentially, if you've been struggling for a while, like, what do I do now? Do I continue to dive into my skills and keep learning new things? Do I pivot a bit because tech is vast and I pivot into something else in tech? Or do I completely pivot? And some people are in the job market today are kind of, yelling and screaming saying we need tradesmen and tradespeople. And that makes sense. But do you want to do that? If you're a coder, do you want to actually like become like a welder or something? And so we're just going to talk about this. This is going to be kind of a candid conversation that we wanted to have. We just have very few bullet points in the show notes just because we wanted to kind of naturally discuss this. So if this sounds interesting to you and you want to support the show, you can go and check us out on that Patreon, leave a review rating on your podcast app, join us in our Discord server, or share this with your friends. And if you want to help out not only yourself, but us as well, you can net yourself up to 20% off a Scribba Pro plan. You can find that link in the show notes and episode description with full details in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com. And remember that we are powered by CodeRabbit. They give you the power of AI code reviews to help cut your code review time in half. Check out the link in the show notes and episode description to net yourself a 14-day free trial with no credit card needed and just a 2-click sign up with a GitHub or GitLab account. Now, Mike, you're actually the one that actually came up with this concept, and we had actually discussed it in sort of an introductory way before we got started here to kind of warm us up. So why don't you warm up the audience to this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. So this really came about. I actually had a whole different episode written up before, and I might do it later. It's going to be all about like the skepticism that people have, not I have, but people have around AI in 2026, and that's part of this conversation a little bit. But for the most part, this comes from my own kind of view over the last little while. So we were on break for the last couple of weeks. I had some time to step away from coding, to step away from the computer for the most part, and just kind of think a lot during this time when I was like, playing with my daughter or just like had some downtime. And like, I'm also looking at, I was looking at X, I was looking at other social medias about what other people are like talking about. And it just kind of like hit me that I don't know what to do anymore. And I don't know. I think a lot of people are having the same experience. I've talked to people that have been laid off recently and they're stuck in the same thing. And it just seems that a lot of really competent people are also in a really tough spot right now, whether it be because layoffs or because they think that layoffs are coming or their industry is kind of in a crunch. And we're all in this, like, I like to think that we're all kind of in this together because obviously as all of us developers, people listening to this, we're all trying to figure out what the next stage is. And we never know, like you're in the times of like the world figuring out how to use AI. We're in the times of like the development industry trying to figure out how to use AI properly, and companies adapting to it quickly or not quickly. And like, we're in the stage of figuring out. And so we can't 100% predict what's going to happen in the future. So that's the uncertainty that we're dealing with right now. And it's always on my mind. And I think like this episode will cover a lot of what we think we want to do and stuff like that. But the reality is that we're probably gonna have to come back to this question quite often over the next maybe 2 to 3 years even, while everything kind of settles down and there is a path forward and we either figure out, hey, AI isn't good at these things, so there's still going to be a lot of developers around, or if the accelerationists start to be believed, then there's not going to be any developers at all in 2 to 3 years. So like, we'll come back to this topic pretty often, but I wanted to discuss today specifically because I'm just seeing a lot of stuff, like information on the internet. Like, so, for example, like from the optimistic side of view, from the AI side of view, like a Google engineer recently not reached out, but posted on X that they were working on something for the past year with a team of developers, and then they tried Claude Code, and all of a sudden it was able to do pretty much exactly what they were doing for the whole year on its own in a matter of minutes to hours. And that's like they wrote this post up and there was a lot of feedback on it. And like, I think we're now starting to see the higher end capabilities of some of these AI systems start to approach being able to actually build sophisticated projects or features on a sophisticated project. I think that wasn't the case if we were talking about this 6 months ago. This wasn't the case. And so we're really now, and I'm seeing this in my own work, even like, my CEO came after the break and he's like, hey, I did all this stuff with AI. AI is becoming more and more useful. Like we're starting to, really invest in this stuff. And that's, it's impacting my job now because I have to make sure that everyone's using it in the right way. And like, I'm personally being affected by this, by the fact that, hey, AI is getting better and it's affecting our workflows and our expectations are becoming higher about the amount of productivity we have. So yeah, I'm trying to adapt to it, right? Because if you don't adapt, you're going to die, in my opinion. Like, if I would have came back to him and been like, no, AI is shit, I think that's it. That would have been the end of it, the end of my job pretty much, because it isn't. That's the reality. It's not. I've been using it. I've been always steadily keeping up to date with it. And the reality is that in the last 2 to 3 months, there has been a leap in what it can do. There's been a significant leap in what I've been using it for. Like I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I write probably 10% of the code now and AI writes 90%. I'll review everything AI writes, but that's where the line is crossing, and it might be going closer to 95% at this point.
Well,
Like
what do
personally,
how much of that 90 to 95% of the AI written code are you changing upon review?
very little.
And I presume the amount has been decreasing as well over time.
The amount has definitely been decreasing, and changing manually also has been decreasing. So before, like, 6 months ago, a lot of times the AI would write something and I would physically go in and change things instead of reprompting it because I just found that to be faster. Now I found that, hey, I see an error or I see something wrong in the, like, before I even run the code, and I'm like, hey, can you change this? And I just give it a quick, like, 3 lines, 3 words, 4 words, and it'll go in and change it for me. So it's faster at changing even the smaller stuff now and being more accurate to conform with the guidelines of the code base as well. Like, so like it's writing cleaner code than what I think I can do in a lot of situations, which is where like a little bit of the existential crisis is becoming, is like, I'm a decent developer. I don't think I'm like in the top end of developers. Like, I think there's definitely a much higher end developer than I am that knows stuff a lot deeper than me, that maybe this doesn't affect as much. And I've seen that conversation on X and on other platforms as well, where someone's like, I'm super deep into like, OS architecture. AI can't do what I do. And I think that that's true. Like, I'm not sure. I can't verify that because I'm not an OS developer, but like, I think that that's probably true. Like, that's a little bit further where I am, but I'm a decent developer. And I think AI is at the point where it's like, up and down with me. Like it can do things better than me in some ways, and I do things better than it in some ways. But we're very much aligned now. Where again, like 3 to 6, like 4 months ago, 5 months ago, that wasn't the case. Where I was still, if I wanted to, would write better code.
Right.
And now it's like I don't even think I could write some of this code that it's writing better than it, even if I had a ton of time, and it's doing it way faster than me. So that's where this conversation is really coming from. It's from my own experience. It's from what I'm seeing online, and I just, what do we do? Like, what do we do as a industry? What do we do as our individuals, as like, you and I, as a podcast duo? Because the other part of this is like, what I'm seeing as well, education content is kind of losing its momentum. So like tutorials, guides, people aren't using them as much. Like as part of my job, we have an e-learning platform for like smart contract development. We're seeing a steady decline in users. That's like clear. It's not crazy. Like, it's still a lot of users, but we're seeing a steady decline there. And like, we're not seeing a good path to expand that because people are using AI, and we've added AI tools and AI stuff into our education platform as well, but it's not enough because people can just go to ChatGPT and ask it, and whether it's right or wrong, they don't really care as much because it gives them a quick answer and succinct answer. And maybe our stuff is better, and a lot of times our stuff is better, but people don't care, right? Like, if they get to the end goal by going to ChatGPT, something that they already pay for and already have open, they're not going to care about some other third-party platform. And that's the same thing that I'm seeing across all, like, Lara Casts just announced some layoffs. Stack Overflow is essentially dead in terms of traffic. Like, it's gone down very significantly to, like, you know, levels where it was like the first or second year of its existence.
Well, I think Stack Overflow, to an extent, just to interject, I think is partially because it's quite toxic on there. I found, and like at
It,
least in my
but
experience,
it
and
was
like
still useful
I
though.
wasn't on there every day, and the content on there was definitely useful, and it was largely community driven. So I'm not blaming Stack Overflow, the staff or whatever.
Yeah.
But every time I went on there as a noob, it's like I would ask a question and you'd kind of get like, a light smack, like, hey, this is a duplicate question. So you're like, okay, that's something to look out for. So then every time you kind of go on there, you kind of get a little bit of a smack, like, oh, okay, can't do that, can't do this. But then it started getting like super granular to the point where, I'm asking a question as a beginner, because I haven't used Stack Overflow in so long. As a beginner, so niche or so specific that I didn't even know what to look up. And then it's like, this is a duplicate. And then it kind of wasn't, like it's related, but it kind of wasn't. It's kind of like, hey, here's a duplicate. Like I'm asking about like a DJI camera, let's just say. And they're like, here's our guide to GoPros. This, your DJI camera question is a duplicate. And it's like, kind of like they're competitors, but your solution doesn't work for me. So it's not really a duplicate. And there were, several times people would, be like, that's a bad solution. You can't do that. And then not offer the right solution and things like that. And it's just like, okay, well, if I'm not really supposed to like learn on this platform, this is the impression that I got is like, if I'm not supposed to learn on this platform, then I won't learn on this platform then. Cause I used to look at like the rep system of Stack Overflow as being something that you would almost want on your resume. And so that's why I started going on there as a beginner thinking, okay, I'll learn the forum game. I'll learn like whatever. And then, opportunities will show up or like I'll learn new things because I'll see interesting questions from people that are doing niche things and that. And I feel like, I mean, maybe I'm being too sensitive, but I felt like I was pushed out and I left.
I don't know. It's always been toxic. I don't think anyone's going to argue that Stack Overflow wasn't toxic. I think everyone would agree with that. I think it was still a vastly amazing resource of knowledge. I didn't ask questions on there, I'll be honest, because of the toxicity, but I did find a shit ton of answers. Without Stack Overflow, I would definitely not be where I am today. And it's definitely like, it was definitely foundational when we were coming up as engineers. But the reality is that like AI is trained on it and AI can now reason its way out of certain situations, right? Like it's able to like solve questions that are unanswered to a certain degree by going into docs, by trying things, by like writing bash and scripts and stuff like that and trying like that's the foundational difference where it like Stack Overflow can't compete with that. Where Stack Overflow has like, right and wrong answers and all that. That's great. AI has the same thing. It'll give you wrong answers sometimes, just like Stack Overflow, by the way. But it's able to test those answers a lot of the time. If you have a feedback loop with your AIs, it's a complete game changer in how code is written and tested and how robust it can be. Like essentially everything I write now with AI, I ask it to like to figure out a way to test it properly. Right. Like, or I tell it how to test it specifically. In some cases it's hard. And like, honestly, it takes me time to figure out how to get AI to be able to do the feedback loop properly because it requires like three or four different integrations or something like that. But I'll spend time on that because I as soon as it's able to do it, it's like night and day in terms of the quality of code it writes because it writes something, it doesn't work. It rewrites it until it works the way I want it to work. And I'll tell it like, hey, don't make changes to these files, only make changes to this file. And so it doesn't have to write even more code. So anyway, like this is an episode about how to use AI, but I'm just saying like the difference between the quality of educational content and, user-driven solutions from Stack Overflow versus AIs today is pretty vast.
Right.
And you had this experience as well with React where like you were learning React through AI. You got it to tell you how to do things in certain ways that you could reprompt it and ask it follow-up questions. You can't really do that with like a course. A course is taught in one way, and if it doesn't fit your needs, then go to another course, which was always fine and always worked because there's so much different content out there. But the fact that you don't have to do that with AI, and you can just ask it things directly, it, in my opinion, changes fundamentally how educational content is viewed in our space. And I think that that's going to be seen across the industry with all education platforms having to either adopt AI, and they are. Like every education platform that I know of has adopted AI to a certain degree, but also like I don't know if that's going to be enough unless they find some unique ways to use it, right? Like I'm 100% positive because again, I'm running an education platform, that every single one of these education platforms is having weekly, daily, monthly meetings about the state that AI is in and how they could utilize it and how it's affecting their user base, and trying to find a path to acceleration and profitability through this spot. And it's not going to be easy.
Well, it's funny you mentioned this because I saw on LinkedIn the other day. I don't know when exactly it was posted, but it came across my feed from Francesco. We've had him on
Yep.
in the past, and at the time he was like trying to build up his Rust community on YouTube, and he was doing tutorial content and kind of like a bunch of Rust content, straight up. And he had a video where it was kind of like a candid video where he was like, should I be doing tutorial content? And I didn't watch the whole thing; it was only a couple minutes, but he was just he had decided like, yeah, I'm going to continue to do it. But like, kind of, is the value diminished? Is the whatever. Now, I don't know whether he said anything about AI or anything like that, but like, I would imagine that that's what it's about. And that really kind of sucks for us in particular, because like, I just posted my first tutorial on there and stuff on YouTube and things like that. But I mean, we're in a weird time, because this is one of those moments for our industry where we can, I think, look at other industries to an extent. So what I mean by that is, if you take a look at, YouTube in the early days, let's say Google just bought them, it starts becoming a more legitimate career path for some people. You don't have people in general using red cameras and special lighting and things like that. You have people using, maybe GoPros, maybe even like, really early smartphones to film things, handy cams, maybe some people were even using tape, to an extent. They had a camera laying around. And then you started seeing the quality go up. And if I'm in that industry, put myself in those shoes, and maybe I'm wrong because I wasn't, but I'm just trying to like kind of extrapolate what's happening to us and kind of apply it somewhere else. Because if you wanted a really good recording, audio recording, video recording, it was like you had to realistically get a really good piece of equipment and or go to a studio, maybe a recording studio, let's say, if you're trying to make a really good podcast. And the democratization of content creation is still widely marketed. When I hear like an ad for Copilot, which I hear to death on Spotify because I listen to my podcasts on there, they'll mention like this, this laptop is for creators and this and that. That like the term creators and the sort of idea of creators, using laptops and things has been around now for a long time, and it's still a thing. But we didn't see the studios, the recording studios, and the professional movie studios shut down because YouTube produces content faster. We didn't see that. And in the same breath, people were like, people's attention spans are getting shorter, right? To get into a different thing. People's attention spans are getting shorter. TikTok and Instagram Reels are the king. They're the king. Then why are podcasts still doing well? And podcasts are oftentimes 2 to 3 hours, sometimes 1 hour, but not 12 seconds, not 30 seconds. And
let me count. I kind of want to counter those views a little bit, because I don't know if we can say that podcasts are still doing well. You and I both know that like numbers are going down, and we've spoken to multiple different creators that are saying the same thing. We can see that the boom of podcasts, where like podcast companies were being bought for $100 million, all failed. Pretty much every single one of them. Like Gimlet completely collapsed. A bunch of others that Spotify bought. The Spotify podcast division is pretty much gone now. Like they bought a bunch of podcasts. I think Joe Rogan is pretty much the only one that still exists from that acquisition. And it's not exclusive anymore, as far as I understand. So I think podcasts in general are not doing too well overall. And the other side, like the movie side, yes, I agree with you that they're still around, but it's also not a particularly thriving industry. Most movies are being remakes, sequels. Like there's very few greenfield franchises being created because of the risk associated with them. And like TV has fewer and fewer episodes per season. Like the time to make each season is going longer and longer. Like, I don't know, like it's, I feel like all those industries are almost all in kind of a decline as well. Maybe, and again, I think Instagram, TikTok, like those things are not really in decline. I think there is something to be said about that view of like short form content being king and staying king for quite a while now, because people are just like flocking to it. Again, I don't think TikTok makes more money than YouTube. I think YouTube is still kind of the king of, online video content.
It's still the number 2 search engine in the world. Google's still the number 1
Correct.
search engine in the world, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like YouTube still powers like long form content. But everywhere I'm looking, like people are starting to do more and more short form content. Like everyone's watching short form content. Everyone around me, like my
See, like, but that's the thing though, to me is, okay, so like I'll the first thing I'll rebuttal on is like, so I'm on backlinko.com looking at their podcast stats page, which I'll link in the show notes. But I'm just going to grab a couple quick numbers here. So this is their article entitled Podcast Statistics You Need to Know. And this is at a glance. It says there are over 584.1 million podcast listeners worldwide. 55% of the US population 12 and over listen to a podcast at least once a month. And in 2025, worldwide podcast ad spending is estimated to hit 4.46 billion. And video podcasts are on the rise, with as many as 41% of US podcast listeners opting for watchable podcasts, which is something we've noticed because we started doing video and people are like doing the video. And we've actually done now maybe this is how Spotify distributes. I don't know. I don't have insights into that. But we will leave the audio version up for a little bit because we don't host on Spotify. And then I'll, during that day or a couple days later, even I'll like log in and just upload a video version. I don't have real numbers, but just hypothetically, if there were 50 listeners, let's just say, of the first episode, I throw that video version in a couple days later, like it quadruples, right? Or triples, or sometimes very, very high. It goes much higher, like in terms of percentage. We have more than 50 listeners, to be clear, but like just as like base numbers to sort of just discuss. And so like people are, and if you go into the stats, it's like, oh yeah, like these people are listening to the video version. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know whether Spotify is pushing the video version more or however, I don't have like direct insights into that, but people are listening to it. And then people are listening to / watching actually more like the web news on YouTube. Like we're getting much better comments on there, like really long form comments that people are really thinking out and writing, which is good. Like, and they agree or disagree with us, which is also good. Like, kind of because web news is a very conversational thing. But the thing from this podcast stats article is it says here by 2027, the number of podcast listeners worldwide is forecasted to hit 651.7 million. And it says here, there's like a little table. 2023, we were at 506.9 million, excuse me. And this goes up each year, each number I'm going to say. So 2024, 546.7 million, then 584.1 million, then 619.2 million, then 651.7. So I think like in terms of podcast numbers for us, we saw our podcast numbers decrease, but then catch themselves and still go up and down. And I think what that is it was literally right in line with our industry having troubles. Like if you look at, when we started talking about the job market not doing well and layoffs hitting, that's kind of when, or it's almost like to the date really of when our numbers started to decrease. And then you and I have had discussions where we'll have a web news, because web news is sort of our, like, I want to call it the editorial show. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's sort of like the anything show where we'll sometimes talk about phones. We'll sometimes talk about, I don't know, water or something. I don't know. We haven't done that. But the point is that when we put those up, the video, as we just said, and we put up a topic is not web development related, we get a lot of listeners actually, in the thousands. And then we'll look at the RSS feed, and the RSS feed will be like, oh, 1,000. But then there's, 6,000 or 5,000 or 2,000, because we kind of look within the first month or whatever, 2,000 like on just the YouTube version. And then our video stats are not included in our RSS feed stats from Spotify. So then we also have to go into Spotify individually and like add those up. And like, that's when I was talking to you last year is I said, our podcast is not in decline anymore. It's actually growing once again. It's just that we were looking at one analytics source, but you have to kind of look at them all because like YouTube Music is not going into our RSS feed statistics either. And so if you look at them, it's like, whoa, like this is actually, quite a jump. It's still bumpy. Like it's not like going straight up or anything. But so the reason why I even like brought this up is like, I think that there's definitely something going on with the dev space. We've seen that AI is coming in, different because of that, naturally new managerial styles and statuses, effectively, if you will, the suits are making different decisions because AI is in the playground. Some people are going to get laid off. Some people are going to get hired to be AI prompters. New jobs are opening, old jobs are going away. But I wonder how much of like a doomsday scenario we're in. And and here's the thing. I absolutely hear the people and sometimes agree. I'm such a flip-flop right now because there's just so much
Yep.
information coming out. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, like we're in trouble because like in the past, right? We used to code websites, HTML, CSS, JS. That's how we did it. Then it's like, hey, a little bit of PHP every now and then. It's like, all right, cool. Now it's like, frameworks, this and that. And we would leave those technologies, depending on the stack you were using, you would leave those technologies by the wayside. Like you would leave those. But now you have a tool that can do all those things. And you have a tool like my one friend, he listens to AI music. He was telling me, he's like, yeah, I wanted a song about this. I prompted it. I thought it was catchy. It's in his, I don't know if it's Spotify or whatever, but it's in his library, like however he listens to music. And he says, he's like, yeah, I've been listening to it on repeat all morning. And I'm like, man, like, a band would have to schedule the jam sessions, learn the creative thing, go back and forth on versions, have the label do their thing, all this. So I am flip-floppy in that AI is so capable, because we have heard even in the comments where they're like, yeah, AI is super capable in all these digital jobs. So what some people will say is go get a real job, or some people will just say go get a trades job, because obviously working in coding that is hard too. And they'll say that, right? They'll say like, hey, like go and like get a tradesperson job. It's like, yeah, but those companies that, need welders, plumbers, and all that, they don't want to pay plumbers. If they could have a robot with an AI do the plumbing. And here's the thing, there is a very rigid set of rules, especially in Canada, which is called our code, right? Like our construction code or our plumbing code or whatever. I'm sure there's other names for it. But the AI could absolutely learn that code and then go into a place and visually be like, these pipes are not the right code. We can't use copper. We must use PEX, I think they call it now, or whatever, right? I'm not a plumber. The point is that, okay, maybe we can't replace all the plumbers, but maybe it's one plumber per job when the job was normally a 4-person job. You got 3 bots and 1 person. And the 1 person is installing and the bot's bringing in the materials and doing the assessing and doing the estimating and doing this and that. So there's like your doomsday scenario, right? Where, at one in one breath, I'm being optimistic, where I'm like, look at other industries, movie studios and them still exist, even though the democratization of good looking, like 4K, et cetera, content is out, right? The creator economy came in and made some really nice looking tools, and people could make movies if they wanted. But the big movie industries like IMAX and that, they didn't completely collapse, although movie theaters are struggling. That's a whole other thing. But the point is, right, there's changes in the industry. But then there's the other side where it's like, yeah, but this is the first time that it hasn't been like, a standard has changed. Like, the standard is not to use, HTML, CSS, JS. The standard is to use React, let's just say. So then you kind of leave those tools by the wayside, but you still have the same people operating it, right? Coding in it. This is the first time where it's like, yeah, but this new tool is able to learn React, maybe make the new version of React, or even the thing that is going to replace React, and then understand it and then implement it. So we're in a weird spot. And I guarantee someone out there listening is like, Matt, you're being very flip-floppy. You're right. Because I don't have a decision made at the time. Like, I think that things are moving too rapidly and it's all over the place to make a hard decision to be either like a doomsdayer or an optimist. That's my opinion. Anyway.
Yeah. Like, and I agree with you. I think we're very much in this weird flip-floppy time because, like, again, like I was looking on for doing research for the AI skepticism episode, and yeah, there's a lot of good points on the AI skepticism side, right? Like, it's not reliable yet. Deep stuff still requires deep knowledge, et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's a lot of good points on the skepticism side, but like it's and there's a lot of good points on the optimism side. The problem is, like, what do we do in this very situation, right? Like, that's what this episode is about. Like, what are we supposed to do? What
Right.
is our audience supposed to do today where it is very flip-floppy? Like, I think one thing is keep your ear to the ground, understand these tools, right? Like, use them, use the AI as much as you possibly can to be a good user of AI so that you're aware of where it's at right now. Don't write it off. Like, a lot of people I see, again, are still writing it off because they had one bad experience with it 2 years ago and being like, oh, it's shit. That's a stupid take, dumb, hate it, right? Like you're
Imagine
not going to
using
be able to put
the first smartphone. I mean, it's probably not
correct.
great. And then being like, that's it, I'm swearing off smartphones,
Yeah,
right?
and there's some people that are out there that are doing that. Not a lot. I don't think that's the majority. I think most people are somewhere in the middle where they're trying to use AI to boost productivity, and that's the way to do it. Keep your ear to the ground. Make sure that you're aware of the situation. But like, what's next? Like, what's other than that? Like, how do you protect your job? Like, people are getting laid off. How do you find a job? Like, it, it's a the industry is in kind of a state of it's stuck as well because the employers are also in the same state, right? Like the employers themselves are like, should we hire more engineers or shouldn't we?
Well, yeah.
So
Well, because the
that's
managerial
where we're
staff
at.
is changing, right? Like the decisions
Yeah,
that managers used to make used to be, at a very high level. How many people do we need to run these tools? Now it's like, hang on, can we get something that isn't human to run these tools for us? Like the managerial decisions are going to be different. And I know that people are going to be highly critical of them, but like as a manager, if I were to somehow, project myself into those shoes, of which I'm not a manager currently, but having, managed little projects and things like that, or not little even, but having managed projects, put things together for clients, even in the IT field, running things like that, I wouldn't know. Like I have someone to report to. I as a a manager have to report somebody. And if I say we need 6 people, and they're like, "Man, you blew the budget. Why didn't you use an AI agent for 2 of those people or something?" Right? And so then now you have an issue, right? And I know some people are gonna be like, "Well, have the moral high ground." Okay, but if I try to do the moral high ground and I'm a manager that's considered ineffective at that point, because I've decided I'm going to use all humans, no AI, considered inefficient maybe by the company at large. I'm going to get laid off, and then I'm put into this industry where we keep saying that the job market's not great. So like now it's like, okay, what do we fend for? Are we fending for ourselves, or are we fending for the industry at large? And like some people are absolutely going to be the people that are like industry at large. They care about their cause, whether it's pro AI, anti AI, pro management, anti management, whatever it is. Some people are going to be all about the cause, but there's many people out there that, they'll work 12-hour days and they don't have time to like get into these arguments. It's more like, dude, I need the paycheck because I got a mortgage. Like that's a big thing. And I've heard that in podcasts before too, where, some of our political issues, which we're not going to get into, but some of our political issues today are like really divisive. And I've heard people say, a lot of people don't have time to get this into politics. They don't have the hour to listen to this podcast or the news or whatever it is to then, make a decision on some of them very complex and very divisive issue. Many of them are just gonna be like, I don't know, because they gotta
most
they gotta
people.
go to their 12-hour shift again, right?
Yeah, most people. Like most people
Right.
are in that boat. Like where like that's why it's a I don't know. It gets for us specifically, or for like people around for developers, let's say, I can say confidently that you should definitely be upping your soft skills as much as you possibly can. Knowing people, networking is going to be still it has been and will be the thing that will get you a job. I saw the CEO of Planet Scale being like, "Hey, we don't interview people anymore." Like they're like he's like, "We only hire seniors." That's what he says. If you have proven that you're good, we're going to just hire you straight out. We try to make the process like 1 or 2 days and no technical interviews, nothing. You'll just be put onto the team and, proof is in the pudding. Like if you can do it, you can do it. If you can't, you can't. So that's the approach of a lot of people. It's the same thing with Cursor, apparently. Like I heard Cursors was they will spend 25% of their time finding the right engineers. Like, sorry, every manager, as far as I understand it, and even maybe the employees are allotted 25% of their time to do recruiting. And they will go out and try to find the best of the best in whatever industries and just like talk to them, try to get them to join. And then when they join, their process is, hey, you have to in the first either 24 hours or a week, I can't remember which one. Don't quote me. You have to have a PR up into our main repo with a feature or something like that if you're a developer. So like they just want people in and doing it. So the only way to find those people is to be like, out there and show what you're building and talk to people that know their shit and have them vouch for you, right? So that's why I say like you really, really at this point need to be very social, even if you're not, and very much out there. Like you need to be in the zeitgeist.
Right.
You need to be posting everywhere you possibly can, networking anytime you possibly can. And that's very difficult, like super difficult for a lot of people. Like I'm more of an introvert. That's really difficult for me. And it's difficult for a lot of other people out there that I know. So that's gonna weed some good engineers potentially out of the industry because of the fact that they just can't do that part. But I don't see another path. Like there's no junior jobs are pretty much done. Like as far as I can see, like there's just none available. Like the Planet Scale CEO was just like, we don't hire juniors, period. We will not hire juniors. Not
I
worth their
will
time.
say that, like, to be fair, like a lot of those, and we've talked about this in the past too, Mike. I think it might have actually been your episode. Was a lot of this stuff to an extent is it, I guess I could say, to the
Mhm.
tech sphere, where like, the accounting firm that needs a
It's
developer to
true.
help them make their like accounting tool might not be like so like, yeah, AI, AI, AI. They're like, we need to have someone type in the tax code, in the code, like convert the tax code to code for our program. So like do that, So like there might be opportunities there. I will say that like I think you're right in that it's like going around and applying to job postings, with a resume is absolutely something you should be doing. But I don't know if that's the only thing you should be doing. Like I feel like that's one
Well,
thing.
it
Like
should
back in the
not be the only
day,
thing.
it used to be that was just what you did. It's like
Yeah.
I'm gonna go apply. Now I think it's a little bit different. Like I'm not in the job market personally, but like from everything I've read and seen, it seems like you need to be a little bit more like before. If you were on social media, you would get opportunities, right? Social media or just like a known developer. You don't have to be on social media. Even if you have like a good
Mhm.
blog, you're doing a bunch of indie hacking or something. You have a good blog, you're showing off the stuff. A recruiter from a specific company finds you. It's like, boom, you're in, right? Like you have a presence. That's my point, right? You don't necessarily have to be social media. The thing is, though, is like you have that presence and you have that. And so you get like actually kind of like cherry picked. Like they want you potentially, so they get you. Or if you have a foot in the door, you have a friend there and they're like, and the friend goes to their boss and says, my friend needs a job. And he's like, well, what does he do? Having a URL where it's like, send him to the, your website where the guy's like, whoa, this guy made a crazy robot arm and we're making a robot arm. Get him over here. Right. It's no longer just like, what's his name? What's his address? Going through that resume. So
Yeah.
having like that foot in the door, having like the multifaceted sort of like approach in the past was always a benefit. Now it's almost
Mhm.
like a requirement virtually, right?
Yes.
Because it's
That's very
because the
true.
job market's hard. Because before it
Mhm.
was like, oh yeah, just if you just want to do the resume game, go ahead because it'll maybe take a bit, but whatever. And the sort of presence, let's say, was a buff. Now it's like that buff is needed. Like that's now it's
Yeah.
now a vital thing. As if you're an RPG player, that buff is a vital part of your build. It's not just a bonus anymore.
Very true. And like building projects was always something, and I think that still, again, it's one of those things that I still recommend, but it's not the be all end all anymore either. Like you can build a sick project and then some other guy can just prompt Claude to do the same project and boom. Like it's again, the technical skills have started to become democratized, right? Again, top level technical skills, probably not. But any like maybe the top 70, like the bottom 75%, I think those I can confidently say are pretty democratized right now. So it's tough to differentiate yourself in that space.
Right.
So that's why, like, the being really good, being really social, being really a good communicator is the way to go. But this isn't even speaking to junior developers. This is speaking to any developer out there that's like has a job right now. I think that we need to spend extra time, and I'm thinking myself included, just like being in the space and just understanding, like talking to people, networking, making sure that we're aware of other opportunities out there and stuff like that. Like, I think it's important to up that game right now because it's a tough market, like we're talking about in development. Anything can change on people can be laid off pretty quickly, and it's not super clear the path to getting a job. So just being ahead of the game, I think right now is super important, and that might require you to spend extra hours after work and stuff like that doing extracurricular social activities for networking purposes and for building project purposes. And that's where my head's at. I'm just talking from my own perspective, right? Like I'm trying to think of like what I can do to differentiate myself right now because I'm an okay developer, but I need to like obviously the podcast helps because it increases our reach. I need to make sure that I'm in a place where I could, you know, pivot if I needed to. And honestly, like pivoting to that side of the discussion, creating some applications, screwing around with projects, I think that's gonna be where I probably land because I wanna be able to talk about stuff. And again, I'm gonna use AI to create these projects, so I'll talk about the AI part of it. I'll get better at using it. I've already started creating one project. This was right before the holidays started creating like an AI code reviewer that's less smart. So like our show sponsor Code Rabbit does everything and it's sick. It's really good. What I want something is actually a little bit less in your face and like hands on. I want something almost like a step back where it will help you personally review the code, because I think a really important skill that needs to be continued and needs to be like kept up is code review in this time in this time. So learning how to review code better personally, like not just using an AI tool, I think is really important. That's where the tool that I'm creating is giving extra context to what's been changed. It's giving like notes here and there about where something's been changed. It has a summary of the changes, but it's not providing any examples of what you should like, report. It's not writing the reviews for you, for example. It's not doing a full review. It's just assisting you in a review. And I like those little things, keeping up my hard skills as well as learning the review tools. I think that's what I need to continue to do. And that's what like a recommendation I would make for everyone. Like Matt mentioned it before, where like find like a deficiency in whatever tool you're using and try to build a tool around it. I think that's really important. It's hard to find nowadays though, because so many tools are being built nonstop, where like, and you have to be, in the dev space, especially, like we all understand how these tools work, so we can use these AI tools even more like efficiently. I wish I was more aligned to other spaces. Like, gaming is a saturated one, but I wish I was like a avid bowler or something. That's a stupid one, but like some other community really, really like way far adjacent to the dev space, so that I had kind of an unfair advantage and I could build something for them that's not necessarily going to be solved by, a particular developer in that space. I don't have that right now. So maybe honestly, another recommendation for myself and maybe for other people out there, if you're obsessed with dev stuff, maybe you need to step away from dev, take a step back and try to find another hobby that you could use your dev skills in. Maybe it's to some degree, but maybe it's completely different. And you just need to, network with other people and talk to other people. And that could lead to other opportunities. That could lead to other jobs. That could lead to, again, finding the deficiency in that community where you can solve a problem for them with your dev skills, right? Like maybe that's the play. I don't know. Like that's again, this is not a structured episode. I'm just ranting at this point.
Well, I mean, this leads into something that I've talked to you about off air, which is something where, I mean, way back in high school, and in late elementary school, we had like a career, sort of like literally a traveling like RV/bus that was like about careers, and it would go like school to school, and they would have like a class or a seminar or whatever you want to call it, teaching us things. And one of the big things that I got out of that was actually that they said, right now people are more or less, they choose a place to work. They're a welder, a programmer, it doesn't matter. They choose a place, they get in there, they have a career, they have a pension, they have all this. And they said that is disappearing, that they're finding that the people who, because obviously every year there's people graduating from, say, post-secondary or just secondary and entering the workforce, and anyone in between too. Even if you're a dropout, you're entering the workforce and you're not getting that career, right? And one of their things was that, you're probably going to jump job to job a bunch. That was in the early seminars. We did a few. And then the later ones, it was the same sentiment, but some of it was like, you might not be doing the same thing. And not just like, hey, you might be programming a kiosk app versus, hey, you might be programming a computer app, right? Because that's different. Obviously, you've changed offices. They were kind of hinting, it was like a little bit, they're kind of hinting at like, hey, like you might be like building shelves and then you might be programming kiosks and things. Like it's it's a kind of a jump around. I kind of like at the back of my mind took that. And I think that my kind of career maybe shows that actually in that, I understand, like before we started this podcast, I knew how to podcast and I was definitely not a super professional podcaster or anything, but I understood that. And that I consider a skill diversification. I actually have like quite a lot of skill in understanding and buying antiques, which is a weird thing, like kind of a weird thing for developers. But I was talking to a friend who, is not into coding at all. And he mentioned AI and stuff because he started using ChatGPT. And he said to me, he's like, are you going to be replaced? I was like, yeah, maybe. Like, it's possible. Like, I don't know. There's that flip-floppiness again. And he's like, what are you going to do? I was like, probably sell antiques. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, I know stuff about like old tables and this and that. And I don't have like, a mega collection or anything like that. But I have bought and sold antiques before, and I understand the antique market to an extent. And I am like I was when we started this podcast, which is like I'm not starting at square one. I would still be a beginner antique salesperson or antique person, picker, whatever you want to call me. The point is that I have like a foot in that door. And I think without really thinking about like I said, it's at the back of my mind. So it's almost like conscious, subconscious, like it's a little voice that's like, hey, like stay diversified. And I feel as though these are little things that I've, kept up with where if the programming goes down, then I'm gonna go sell like antique tables. Like it sounds ridiculous. But here's the thing. What suffers is my coding skill. We've talked about this a bunch where like I can't build, right off the hop a full stack app for people. However, I have learned the tools that our customer base, where the money is for us, where our customer base, wants. They want WordPress, they want Webflow, they want simple landing pages. So I've learned that stuff to death. But I haven't been that person in their career where they're like, they'll like constantly invest in that one skill where they're like, I'm going to be the best programmer, I'm going to be the best web developer, I'm going to be the best web app maker, whatever. I'm going to be the best doctor, right? It doesn't have to be coding. And they're going to just keep learning and learning and learning. So I have that sort of jack of all trades, which is commonly associated with tech, but it goes my jack of all trades and my diversification of skills goes outside of just like coding. And I had an interview with a guest, and off air, the person, asked to see my LinkedIn, and we were just kind of having a chat. And this particular guest said, oh, you have like media experience. And I said, like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, other than like the podcast. And this person said, you've been on, like you've written for, Berryflow back in the day. You've written tech articles. You have experience. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, that's another one of those little diversifications where, I understand people are like content rating's dead. Well, that's part of the diversification. Like how many antique dealers are out of business due to AI right now? You know what I mean? There's your, and that industry goes through its ups and downs too. Like, the throwaway economy hurts it and this and that. But then you have people that are like artisans or maybe movies that want props. And you see what I mean? Like there's all these, like, there's like a web there of things you could get into from, just antiques, for example. But it's just one of those things where, this episode really kind of made me think about that. And I don't know necessarily if this is what, everybody should do. Because some people are going to make a lot more money than me because they decided to invest all their time in getting better at that one right skill. They went all in on something. They became a millionaire, billionaire, whatever. Right. But I mean, for me, I'm definitely more of an anxious person. And so I'm keeping my, let's say, like anxiety or worries at bay by having multiple skills. Like if it's like tomorrow, development disappears for some reason, somehow, just tomorrow, it sucks. And I'll definitely be worried about it, but I'll immediately start trying to make deals to resell antiques. It'll almost be instant.
I feel like for me, I would actually switch to the domain, the set of skills I have other than coding is like cooking. Like I was a line cook for like 5 years.
There you go.
So I could switch back to that. It sounds like a nightmare for me, but I guess like if it comes to eating and not eating, that's probably what I would do. I would go back to being a line cook. But yeah, it's a good point. Like I think in the development space, the pivot that I would do if I had to do a pivot right now is getting good again at reviewing code and consulting vibe coders. Like I would try to target that in SEO hardcore. I would try to become a consultant on vibe coding projects to try to get them to like, hey, I'll do the security reviews for you guys. I'll do the architectural reviews. I'll make sure this is scalable before you launch it.
Right.
And stuff like that. Like you can vibe code it. I'll just do the review for you. And then I'll give you suggestions.
Yeah.
Or I'll even give your AI suggestions on how to improve it. And then I'll review those suggestions and I'll get it to a point where it's good. Right. Like
we've had a guest that like did that as a service, or maybe still does. I'm not sure, but
I'm sure they do. Yeah, I'm sure that there's going to be many of those popping up, and I'm sure that there's going to be quite a bit of work on that side because at the end of the day, it's still going to be a lot cheaper. Vibe coders are going to vibe code with $200 a month pack deals from Anthropic or whatever, and then have like if everything goes well and they start seeing success, they're going to be like, okay, well, how do I make this good? Instead of hiring a developer, they'll hire potentially consultants that will help them quickly productionize their applications,
Right.
potentially, again, just prompting their AIs, and yeah, that's it. Like, it'll be cheaper, right? Like, it'll be a 1-month engagement rather than like a 12-month engagement. So like, I think there's some value there. Again, that's some, maybe, I don't know if it's secret sauce, probably not secret sauce, but that's like, again, where my mind goes. If I needed to diversify and if I needed to pivot today, that's probably where I would go.
But here's the thing though, Mike, is like even it doesn't even necessarily need to be skills. Like
Mhm.
I've talked to people where people think I'm bizarre because I buy things and I use them until it's in the ground. And I've said to them, I'm like, I literally had a free, served me great 34-year-old couch or something like that. And I used it until like literally my knees were hurting because it was so sagged like down to the ground. And I used it for another 7 years. And then I eventually got rid of it. And it was like, people were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, let's think about this. If I went in, let's say, I don't know what a normal increment is, but I'll call it 10 years. That would have been 3 couches. Now I take that money and, now I have that money. What am I going to do with it, right? Am I going to pay for a course to invest in myself? Am I literally going to invest it? Like, this is not investment advice, certainly, but it's, now I've freed up those funds. People are buying cars, like cars are out of control in Canada, even the used cars. And people are like, yeah, it's only 50. I'm like, you're not understanding though. You're saying it's only 50,000 because the market's crazy. But at the end of the day, your bank account is going to be 50,000 or more if you get a loan lighter. 50,000. And you're the person that's complaining about Netflix being $10. Do you think that $10 Netflix is making a dent into a $50,000 car? Right? And so for me, that's another thing that I do where it's not something where I'm working, not something where I'm like working on a skill to make more money, but I'm being like conscious where I'm like, I'm a gamer. I'm going to buy a bunch of games. I like tech. I'm going to buy a bunch of tech. Where can I save the money? So like I've told
Yeah.
my girlfriend to death, like I've like my car, like if you have a car and you keep it and keep it and keep it and keep it and keep it, the money you saved can never be taken away from you. Like, even if someone's like, yeah, but if something happens and then you have to pay that money out, I was like, yeah, but now I have that money and you didn't, right? You can never take the money that I saved away from me effectively, right? And like, that's because people are buying cars like, oh, it's only 50. No, like not to me anyway. Like, what are you doing? So like that's another thing where it's like that allows me to like invest or try new things or like buy some antiques and like play with that a little bit, and it gives me that freedom. I'm not saying everybody should do what I'm doing, but like what you're saying, obviously you're saying like, new skills or whatever. It's like you can also just be, it's not even it's being frugal, but it's not being frugal, if that makes sense. Like I'm getting all the phones and stuff I want. I have like an e-waste situation basically because I have so much tech, right? But like that's a joke, but like almost true. But the point is like I can buy that stuff and people will be like, that's crazy that you bought that. I'm like, yeah, but you have a $75,000 vehicle. I bought a $300 handheld computer. We are not the same.
Yeah.
We are not the same, right? And so I feel like that also helps because it frees you up to do a little bit of stuff, right?
Well, I think it's really good advice. Honestly, I think right now, especially for most people out there, unless like you're really set in your job, I think having a larger emergency fund, being a little bit more frugal, just setting more stuff aside for the potential future that we might have to adapt to, it's not a bad idea. Like having a bigger buffer, having a bigger safety net right now is good advice. Like that is good financial advice. You know what I mean? Like we're not asking you to invest stuff into things. We're not asking you to do.
Yeah, this is not financial or investment advice. Like, let's be clear.
Well,
However,
yeah, it's not investment advice. I do want to say like having an emergency fund is good financial advice. Like it's not, I don't think that is a
it's just a
crazy
savings
statement.
account or whatever
It's
somewhere.
just a savings account. Exactly. Yeah. We're not saying like, we're not telling you where to invest your money. I'm just telling you like right now, especially if you can save a little bit more money by canceling something or not buying that super expensive car, stretching your car out for an extra couple years. Like that's not a bad idea. If you're in the dev space, if you're in like a dev adjacent space, tech space in general. Yeah, we don't know. Like we don't know what's happening. That's the whole point of this episode. What do we do? One of the things is, you're right, Matt, save money.
Save money and just be ready. Like,
yeah,
like people will ask me, I golf a lot. People will be like, my God, like it's $50 a time. I'm like, yeah, I don't have a car payment.
mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, but you still have to pay for brakes and stuff. So do you. And you have a car payment. So do you. And like, I may one day I'll have a car payment. I'm not trying to judge, right?
Yes.
One day I'll have a car payment.
Yeah.
I get it. However, I've chosen to not have a car with Android Auto and all this fancy stuff, and now I can golf 4 times a month easily without thinking about it. Maybe 10. There's been months where there's been 10. You know, it's so it's just that, and so like I've invested in my like golf skill, you know, which is obviously like silly, but if I'm in trouble, I could be like, oh, okay, hang on, hold up, slow down the golf, let's invest in this other thing, you know, in myself, maybe take a course that allows me to like do another thing, or you know, learn SEO better. Maybe I'm getting more calls. Like we have our ear to the ground, like as you said earlier in the episode,
Mhm.
to the industry. You know, for a while there, we were getting calls mostly about SEO. And so I was like, okay, what is the niche here? Because this isn't like, they're not calling an SEO firm, they're calling me. It's like, okay, it's out of all the calls, it's small business SEO, it's small, attainable. Let's not spend 10 million hours on SEO. So, okay. And that's what I learned. I spent a good 6 months probably learning that. And to this day, I still give advice, you know, attainable, affordable SEO advice to companies. And like it's maybe not so big now, but it was for about a year and a half, 2 years
Yeah.
of our business. Like they'd call me and they'd be like, okay, I want you to build a website, but I also need help moving forward with the SEO. And then you explain, okay, a website's a living thing. This is why, you know, even if I give you the keys to this WordPress site or this Webflow site, you can't just leave it and expect the great results. You might get great results, but that's a lottery. Let's try to, you know, let's get more ballots in that ballot box, right? Let's get more votes, the kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. I think that's the conversation. It was a little bit ranty. I think that's what it was meant to be. And we don't have a clear answer for you, but there's enough advice in here that I hope will settle you down a little bit. You know, save money, diversify as much as you
I
can.
thought you were going to say live better. I was going to say, am I going
No.
to pop up a freaking Walmart logo right
Yeah,
now?
no. Save money, live better. No. Try to find a different skill set, try to, you know, connect with people a little bit more, like just be ready. Like you said, Matt, be ready because we don't know what's happening, and just being ready right now it could be the difference between you being in a shocked position of being like, "Oh shit, I'm out of a job and I don't have anything on any clothes on the fire." Whereas like if you start to attend some networking events, if you start to build something on the side, if you have something going, it's going to be a much easier transition. So not meant to scare you at all. Again, this is not we don't have the answer to this. It could be this year, 2026 could prove to be the end of AI
Yep.
threat. You know what I mean? Like being like everyone needs to come back and we need to hire more people and developers can hire. I've had, you know, weeks ago I've had takes on this podcast where like I think that hiring is going to actually accelerate in 2026, and that
I
still
think I've
could be
seen
the
some people
case.
show graphs about that where it's like, obviously
Yes.
we're just in January, but it's like started or whatever.
Yeah, like where like the hiring has taken off. It's just again, it changes so quickly, and
Hmm.
my takes go up and down so much that like it's tough to know where we're at.
Yeah.
And being ready is a really, really good piece of advice right now because we're in a weird spot. I don't think, regardless of where it goes, positive or negative, this is a weird spot to be in. So just take that with what you can. Take that as best you can, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. And I would like to say just one other thing. Like, you know, I talk about money pretty like openly like that. If you're like a person that's like, Matt, I spend all my money on like my mortgage or whatever, I'm not trying to talk down to you in any way. Like I totally understand that. What I would personally do is then start looking at like, can I side hustle myself to the point where like I'm not just living the paycheck to paycheck, right? That's what
Yeah.
I would say. Cause like, I know some people are like, man, like, you know, I do have all these loans and like I'm stuck in this situation. Totally understand that. Like, I'm not trying to say like you're a fool for, you know, not being prepared as I was. Like I'm pretty eccentric. So I'm like, man, let me look at that antique table. Like that's pretty weird for someone that's like, I'm also learning web development. Like it's a pretty unique situation. And so, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because I know some people are going to be like, I'm spending all my money just on the essentials. Like I get it. Like it sucks.
Mm.
It sucks out
And that's
there.
probably a lot of people out there.
Right. And it sucks out there because of the prices and
Yeah.
stuff. Like it's not great. But yeah, like Mike said, I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. First episode recorded actually in 2026. So I guess for a second or third time, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year from us live, not live. Anyway, that's the conclusion of this episode. Remember that if you want to support episodes like this, remember that we're on Patreon. That's patreon.com/HTML, all things. And many thanks to our $3 tier patrons. Tim from the Web Hacker on thewebhacker.com. Jason from Geek Life Radio via geekliferadio.com. Garrett Segal Level Up Financial Planning via www.levelupfinancialplanning.com. Magnus from YesWeb via yesweb.se. Syntaxify from the HTML All the Things Discord server, and Stacey Mosteler from the website swoonworthydesigns.com. And just a reminder that we are powered by Code Rabbits. They give you the power of AI code reviews, help cut your code review time in half. Check out the link in the show notes and episode description to net yourself a 14-day free trial with no credit card needed and just a 2-click sign up with a GitHub or GitLab account. And we talked about investing in yourself, investing in your skills, where you can do so with up to 20% off a Scrimba Pro plan to go and take some of their coding courses. You go learn some front-end stuff, some back-end stuff with their interactive media player code editor. It's a pretty neat tool to help you learn hands-on from the comfort of your own home. Full details on that deal and the links, full details on that deal will be in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com. The link will also be there and in the show description. And many thanks to our patrons, which are already thanked. We'd also like to give a shout out to Michael Laraka, a contributing author at htmlallthethings.com. Michael is the author of Self-Taught, the X Generation blog at selftaughttxg.com. And that's it. We are signing off.